Hi everyone, we'll be waiting 2 to 3 minutes before starting the webinar to accommodate for the rest of the attendees who are in the middle of connecting. Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Valen Kolika and I will be your host for today. Few reminders before we start. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast. You can enable them by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by simply clicking on the Ask Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you entered it. Now, we often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Network Security forum at aka.ms/Azure Network Security Community. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, that's also a great place to ask a question. We'd love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars, and you can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. We would love to hear your feedback on the sorry about that. I would also like to invite you to join our public community by visiting aka.ms/security-community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews, request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is simply by removing any barrier between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Camila Martins will guide us through Azure DDoS Protection. Camila is a program manager with our Azure Network Security team. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to her. Camila, the floor is yours.
Hello, thanks, Valen. All right, hey everyone. As Valen introduced, my name is Camila Martins. I am a program manager here at Microsoft, and I focus in the Azure security products. Today, we are going to be talking about distributed denial of service protection, which is one of our cloud native services to secure your environment in the cloud. I want to know, if you've ever been like a victim of the DDoS attack. Imagine going onto your bank website, trying to log in, pay a bill, and that thing is down because it just got like attacked. And not only that, as a consumer, imagine if you were working in that IT department or that security department, right? So DDoS truly is a real thing. It not only impacts our systems, it impacts our lives. So today, in this webinar, I'm going to go over how we can enable the plan, how we can configure the plan, and how we can check on some logs and reporting systems. So let's get started. Before we go into the tech stuff, I would like to ask you and get to know a little bit more about you all. If you can go to polev.com/DDoS, I have a question here on how do DDoS attacks impact your business? It is a little related to industries, and let's see how you guys are responding to that. I hope I see some participation here. I'll give it a few seconds. Not sure if it's too early in the presentation there.
Yeah, I also posted the link for your convenience, and we'll give it a few more seconds because it does take some time sometimes to refresh on the back-end side of the audience.
Yeah, for
there
sure.
There you go.
Sweet, thanks for participating, everyone. Yeah, and I was like, well, I want to start with a question, but sometimes people are still joining, Let's see. Sweet. Very cool. Yeah, e-commerce is definitely quite often the big one. I really wish I knew what the others were. I'm kind of curious. And I didn't even think about this, but we are getting towards the end of the year, and e-commerce websites with all of the sales and, that's going on for promotions and Christmas. I know that DDoS is even more of a big deal.
You're right. I didn't think about it. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sweet. Well, thanks everyone for that. Let me move on here. I want to start talking about some key features about the DDoS offering. We have the DDoS Protection Basic listed in our website. What we mean by that is our Azure Platform Protection. So DDoS Protection Basic is what we have in place to offer protection for us as Microsoft and Azure in regards to being a cloud provider to all of you, right? We, when something happens that is such a massive event that it could impact Azure as a whole, we are protecting that. But something in between, there could be a gap between what's impacting Azure as a whole and your systems, right? So DDoS protection standard comes in there to fill that gap. Like, let's say that you want to be able to protect your application in regards to the thresholds that your application will be impacted, and you want to be able to report on those events, and you want to be able to have logs about those events. You want to be able to have dedicated support in the event you're being under attack. All of those items come with the DDoS protection standard option, but it's not offered in our basic protection, which is platform-wide, and it's included in your services, right? It's there for free. Let's go into another picture here that shows you primarily what the big differences are when you decide to invest in the protection standard option. We obviously have a worldwide, environment. Azure is everywhere on the globe. So any of our mitigation systems are available everywhere in the world. So no matter where your resources are and no matter where your attacks are sourcing from, we have the infrastructure behind your apps to protect you. Adaptive tuning is what happens when we are always learning the traffics for your specific applications and system, and then applying those thresholds that are proper to you and that will protect your environment specifically. From that, obviously, you will have access to analytics and metrics based on logs, based on activity profiling that you can report on. You can use for postmortem reports. You can use for, understanding what happened in the timeline of your attacks, etc. You also get a DDoS rapid response option, which is in engineering support in the event that you are actively under attack. You can engage them. It's a SEV-A type of approach under that SLA for them to guide you through and help with any questions you may have while they're under attack. And ultimately, we also offer a guarantee and a cost protection in the event that you have auto scaling set up in our systems, and DDoS protection was not able to mitigate the system, and you end up auto scaling while you can prove that happened during and because of a DDoS attack. You can get some credits just to cover for those extra costs. I'm gonna take a moment here to take a sip of water. 1 minute. Okay. All right, so I am gonna give it a try, and I'm gonna try to do a live demo during this webinar. I wish you all wish me luck because you all know how that goes, right? We are gonna use a Breaking Point Cloud partner, which has partnered with Microsoft, and this is an application that will perform a simulation of a DDoS attack. So let me open that up and we'll get it kicked off. So here it is. This is something that you all have access to. Breaking Point Cloud does offer a few free gigs. I don't remember how many gigs it is, but you all can sign up, and there is a couple, definitely enough to do a couple of attacks. And you do have to authorize your Azure subscription to be able to attack a certain public IP address. It is not possible for you to just attack any random IP addresses. So you got to own it. You got to go through the authorization method to do so. So this is my IP address. Let me triple check. Yep, that's the one I want to attack today. I'm going to do on port 443. I have selected a TCP SYN flood for my attack, but you can see, you can see that there's quite a few others here. I'm selecting this amount of 200,000 packets per second. It's going to source from 8 different IPs, and I'm going to make it last 10 minutes. So I'm going to kick off this test. I am going to hope here that it will, in fact, kick off. All right. So the validating portion is that it's making sure that I can, in fact, attack that particular IP, right? So it's going to say, oh, you're authorized, you own it, you're good to go. After that, it's going to queue, and it should kick in pretty soon. There you go. So while this is going through, I am going to be talking over other things. And that way, by the time I'm done talking about the, fun stuff about DDoS, we can probably see, I want to be able to see the real logs and the way that Azure has been responding to this and mitigating this attack while we're here together. Okay, so I want to get to talk about more generically in regards to DDoS attack types, because I want to make sure that everyone here understands what the DDoS offering that we have can do for you, right? And let's go in and start talking about attack type number 1, probably one of the most common ones. It's volumetric attacks. Like, these attacks will generate simply a massive amount of traffic right? And it's going to be so much traffic that it ends up saturating the bandwidth of that particular network that your system is on. So it seems to be a very commonly done attack. Attackers can do it very easily, very cheap to do so. It doesn't take a lot of like sophisticated, knowledge or anything. And they basically destroy your network bandwidth. The throughput is over the top, and then no one can reach the systems that they want to. It's not that there's anything wrong with your app. It's not that there's anything wrong with your servers. It's truly the network is basically blocked. Okay. This type of attack is something that DDoS protection standard can protect against in Azure. Going further with protocol attacks. So these ones, they also call them state exhaustion attacks. They take advantage of flaws in either the network layer or the transport layer. So either, against like IP protocol, ICMP protocols, or maybe against TCP and UDP protocols, depending on which layer we are on. And this attack will actually create a type of a state, like a hung state, right? It will cause systems to open up connections and expect responses. And then there's going to be so many of them open that your target system is just going to exhaust itself. So it's going to, for example, the SYN attack, the SYN flood that we are doing right now is an example of that attack. These connections are going to remain open and open and open and open until like the server just dies out, it can't respond anymore, or maybe an intermediary system like a load balancer in front of your app, or maybe a firewall in front of your app. That could happen too. This type of attack is also something that can be protected by the service we are talking about today. And last but not least, we're talking about resource attacks, which are also known as application layer attacks. And this one truly is a flaw in the application itself, right? So how is the application handling the requests? How sanitized is that? How does the application know to interact with its backend systems to prevent from some of these attacks? And if your application is vulnerable, then an attacker can connect to your application and make just truly legitimate requests, just like a user would be, but in a way that it could be abusive, right? So for example, there are attacks that can be against a simple HTTP request, and then the application needs to execute something when we send a request. It could be uploading a file, it could be doing a backend like database query, it could be trying to call some APIs. And if we're able to push that over the edge, then the application itself just dies out. In this case, we are not, the current state of our DDoS protection standard product does not protect against this type of attacks. So if your security strategy includes protecting against layer 7 attacks for your application, you would have to start considering potentially some partners or third-party products that can cover for this. And just want to share that Microsoft, we are working towards improving this and getting a cloud native offering that can also cover for this type of products. Okay. Setup. Oh, I did mention that we were going to cover for setting up DDoS. But instead of going through my slides, I'm going to give it a try and do it on the portal. Look, 5 minutes. Our simulation attack is still coming through. Let that happen there while we go over the setup. Let me make sure I got this in the right order for everyone so it's not confusing. Okay, so once you're in your Azure portal, we can go to DDoS protection plans. In here, you can see I already have a plan. But if you guys don't have this going on right now, you're not going to have a plan. Basically, DDoS implementation is probably one of the simplest implementations that I've ever done. But you can click here on Add, and you're going to have the option to create a name for your plan. You select a subscription, a resource group, a location. That's it. You have a plan. But then there's some things I want to mention here. While you are deploying this plan in a specific subscription, this setting is in fact tenant-wide. So the same plan can be used by any other subscription in your tenant. There is a billing thing you should know. The subscription that will be billed for this plan is going to be the subscription that the plan is in. And the monthly payment can be, which the plan has a billing set up as a monthly payment. That monthly payment covers for up to 100 public IP addresses. If you go over 100 public IP addresses, there will be like a fee per IP above that. And you can check on the costs for the plan on our Microsoft website billing area. Okay, so we got this here. As you guys can see, I already have my plan. So step 1 is creating a plan. You're not done just yet. We have to do step 2. So step 2, your plan by itself doesn't know what it's doing, right? So step 2 is connecting to a VNet. You have to go to your VNet, and I'm going to use this VN hub for our conversation today. Inside of your VNets, you're going to have a DDoS protection option. Again, as you can see, mine is already set up, so I have it on enable, and I already selected my plan. But you guys are probably going to see that it's disabled. All you have to do is click enable and select the plan you want to link it to. Once you're connecting your plan to a VNet, all of the public IPs underneath that VNet will be protected, right? So I am going to consider this part, step 2. We connected a VNet. After you connected a VNet, just to be sure what's going on, if I go back to my DDoS plan, you can actually see under protected resources which ones are protected. So like, as you can see right here, my VNet is listed. That's the only one I set the plan for. You can click on it. It's going to link you right there. You can see that in my VNet, I have 2 resources. I have an application gateway, and I have an Azure firewall. The one we are attacking today is this application gateway public IP. In here, we have tabs up top that will give you just a categorization of your public IPs. So like if I click on firewall, I can see that I have one firewall IP address that is being protected. App gateway has one IP address being protected. If I click on bastion host, for example, there's nothing listed because I don't have one of those. I may have a host, but I may not have a public IP attached to it, or I may not be in this particular VNet that we are protecting. And let's see here. Step 1, create a plan. Step 2, attach the VNets that you want to protect. Step 3, probably the most important one. Okay. Azure Monitor. In Azure, logging of your resources is not something that is enabled by default. Okay. Azure creates logging at a resource level. So if you want to have details of what happened to the particular resource that you're talking about, you have to first do it, enable logging. There are many ways for you to enable logging. You can do it, with ARM templates. You can do it with PowerShell CLI, Portal, etc. I'm going to show this here via monitor today, just because it's simple for me. Let's pick. In the resource type we're talking about today specifically for this conversation are public IP addresses. This is what we're talking about protecting with a DDoS plan. This gives me a quick visual about my public IPs, which ones are being logged or not, which one has the diagnostic settings configured or not. So like I said, we're attacking this IP over here today. Just going to click on it real quick. These are the diagnostic settings that I want to talk to you about. So these are related to DDoS. If I don't enable this, if I don't make this happen, an attack could occur and I wanted to report on it, I wouldn't have the logs, right? So super important that this is part of your initial setup. Like you can see that I already have it set up here, but what it would look like if you were to set it up, you would give it a name, you would select the types of logs that you want in the metrics. You have an option to send it to Log Analytics, which goes into a workspace, which is what I'll be using today also. You can always archive it to a storage account for the long term. And a lot of customers have their own external SIEM, which they may be running on-prem, they may be running in the cloud, but you can use Vent Hubs to send these logs to your third-party SIEM. And if you guys are using Sentinel in Azure itself, you can also get those logs in there. Okay, so this is our setup. Let me go back here and make sure we covered for everything. We have the plans, we have the VNets, we have the protected resources, we have the diagnostic settings. Ah, yes, time for another question. Let me go enable the question. I'm here chatting and then I didn't go like make sure the thing is actually running. So one moment, let's activate. Okay, let's do one more. I am super curious. I want to know if you guys are using any type of different DDoS solutions or even the Azure DDoS solutions. So same location, polyv.com /DDoS. Let me bring the, doesn't want to let you open. Let me bring the response page up. You guys are going to have to type that one out. I hope I get some participation again. Okay. None. Just so you guys know, I'm actually moderating the responses. So I'm totally putting thoughts and prayers up here. Although I recommend that you guys actually choose a product and not just thoughts and prayers, while thoughts and prayers are great. Let's do. Very cool, quite mixed. Okay. Wow, a lot of none. So that's kind of nice that you're here listening to this, right? Because that way you get to know if this works for you guys or not, right? If it fits your strategy. Wow. Okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Lots of people. Thank you. Huh. Interesting. All right. Sweet. I like. There's a none with a little happy face or sad face, depending on how we look at that. All right. Thanks, everyone. Oh, okay. So let's cover for some operations here. Really super simple. I know everybody's tired of listening to the responsibility model, but I just want to cover for the volumetric and protocol attacks that we talked about earlier. It's actually a shared responsibility, right? So when it comes to the cloud provider, when it comes to the platform level, it's something that us as the cloud provider have the responsibility in protecting against. But when it comes to a resource level, so let's say the attack is small enough to impact your resource, but not big enough to impact the platform, then it is your responsibility as the resource owner to take care of that. And when it comes to resource attacks, application layer attacks, it's definitely on the responsibility of the owner. That is your application, that is your use case, right? Your business reason to be there. You should be able to protect that somehow. I want to get just a little bit further into the adaptive tuning. The way that this works is that we have an intelligent traffic profiling mechanism, right? It's going to learn your application's traffic over time. It's going to then be selecting and updating a profile that fits your app, fits your service. Now, based on that, a policy will be generated. And inside of that policy, there will be a threshold. So that threshold is the mark that that tells DDoS protection to either start mitigating traffic or not. While this threshold is going to vary, obviously, based on that intelligent traffic profiling, we do have a baseline. So I can talk about what our baseline. I can talk about what our baseline is. And the baseline policy is a 20,000 packets per second for us to trigger a mitigation against when there is a TCP SYN type of attack. And we have 100,000 packets per second for mitigation to kick in regards to TCP or UDP attacks. Okay. Now, it's important to say that when mitigation kicks in, it's not like, okay, mitigation is happening, everything is blocked, everyone is blocked. That's not what it works. That's not how it works. What happens is that when mitigation is occurring, instead of the traffic being sent directly to your actual, your systems, it will be sent to our scrubbing mechanism in our DDoS protection scrubbing mechanism will identify each individual packet and will say, okay, this packet is good. If that packet's good, it simply forwards it to your service. That way, a legitimate user still has access to your application. But while scrubbing, if it identifies that it's a malicious packet, it's a malformed packet, it just doesn't make any sense, that's when the traffic drops. So that way, an attacker gets dropped and a legitimate user still gets to use your service. Okay. Forgetting, I talk about this and then I forgot about the most important part. Like I said, we talked about setup and we're talking about operations. This is just happening for you. Like there is no expectation that you're gonna go configure this. You're gonna go define the thresholds yourself. None of that is gonna happen. It simply does it for you, and it's smart enough to do so. Briefly want to bring that up. I mentioned it in the beginning, but you do have access to the DRR team. So if you are in an active attack and you're freaking out and maybe you need technical help, right? You can open a ticket. These are SAV-A tickets. So it follows SAV-A SLAs, and you go and you open this ticket via the help and support area in your Azure portal. Monitoring reporting. Okay, this is the part I go back and hope my demo is working. Let's see what happened here. Let's close this. Thanks for participating. And let's see here. Ooh, completed. Okay. I'm taking another sip of water, everyone. Thank you for hanging in there. This has been completed. Now we are back into Azure. So let's show you how things work. Let's start with Azure Monitor. We're going to go and we're going to talk about metrics. Like I said, we are primarily, obviously, talking about public IP addresses. Those are the things that get attacked. And I am talking about this particular one here that we attacked today. So let's apply this. We selected our metric scope, which is the one particular IP address. And let's select, so we did a SYN attack. So I want to select this option right here. It says inbound SYN packets to trigger DDoS. This is going to show us what our threshold is, right? So we are using that baseline threshold. So my app is not that interesting. It's just 20,000 packets per second is my threshold. So I'm going to add another metric. And now I'm going to add this guy. Oh, I did a few. Looks like there's a bunch of attacks happening here. Let's see the last 4 hours. It goes. Oh, it feels like it didn't reach the threshold. My attack should have gone up this way. It seems like, oh, it went just a little above, like 20.07. Let me show you a different one from like, let's see here. There you go. So for example, this one obviously kicked in, right? And it went above the threshold. So that means that when the red line is up all the way there, it goes above the threshold, which is the blue line, the mitigation would be happening. Let's create a different, let's see this one here. There's another one that is super simple, but very useful, which is, am I under DDoS attack or not? It's a binary. I'll look at that under the last 3 days. Looks like we got attacked a few times. Let's do the last 24 hours here. Oh, this is what's happening to us right now. It goes from 0 means I am not under attack. 1 means, yes, I am under attack. So right now, we can see that the mitigation is still actively occurring. Our mitigation engine has not stopped processing yet. It has not recognized that the attack is done. But you can see it right here, right? So this means that it kicked off over here. It lasted a little bit, and then it was done. From this, you could technically create alert rules, which would alert you in the emails that you have configured in Azure to receive a message. As long as you go and you say here, let's say, if the value is bigger than 0, right, then alert. So 0 means I'm not under attack. But if it goes to 1, you're under attack, you would be receiving an alert. That's interesting. Even though you may not need to take any actions from an operations perspective, you would still be alerted. It's nice to know what's happening in your environment. Let's go check out some logs. Log analytics. I'm going to log analytics. This is where we're saving our logs. And let's open this up. I want to explore and show you the differences between the log types that we have. Let's start with this guy right here. 24 hours. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so these are the DDoS protection notification log type. These ones are pretty straightforward. The main goal of this log type is to let you know when a mitigation started and when a mitigation ended, right? It is great for you when you're doing a postmortem report and you have to be able to say, okay, mitigation started at this time, and it ended at this time. You have a perfect timeline of when the engine was protecting you or not. You can see it right here when it started, when it stopped. The active one that we're talking about right now, still did not stop. It's still going. So we would be receiving those a little while from now. And it tells you, which IP the mitigation was occurring for, and it tells you the reason why it kicked off. Let's go to the next log types. Let's see. This will be about the DDoS mitigation reports log type. Mitigation reports log type are the best one to come up with like a big overview and a nice executive record of what happened to your to the attack. It's important to say that these type of logs, they are incremental. So every 5 minutes while the attack is happening, you're gonna get a different log with the differences that has happened between those 5 minutes, right? And at the end of it, when the mitigation has ended, you get a post-mitigation report, which includes everything that you need to know in regards to that full attack. Let's see if I can open one up here. Did I get the right one? Oh, I did. Here's a post-mitigation one. And these are the details you can get. So of course, you're gonna see this is the IP that was attacked. This is the type of vectors that we went through. These are all the numbers that you need to know, the types of the amount of packets that came through, etc. Like everything you need to know, where the country, which countries were attacking you, which ASNs were attacking you. It gives you great visibility on the sources and the type of attack that you just went under. Now let's see this guy. Last one. Logging. This is the mitigation flow logs. Mitigation flow logs actually logs every single request or every single packet that comes through that went through the scrubbing system will be logged over here. So primarily, it shows you two things. It will show you whether an action was taken and the mitigation was applied and the packet was dropped and the reason why. Or it's going to tell you, no, that everything is okay and it was forwarded to the service. So these ones, you can see that the message is telling me that it was an invalid TCP SYN. It will tell me who the source IP was. So remember, we were doing an attack with 8 different IPs. So we can see them all like around here. And it tells me who it attacked, which ports it used. Let me exclude. I want to show you guys what happens. So this one is obvious, right? It got dropped because of an invalid TCP SYN packet. I'm going to exclude this just so we can see what happens with the other ones. Oh, this one is another bad one. Okay. Excluding because of invalid TCP. Let's see. This is what happens when the service identifies a legitimate good packet for a true user. It just tells you, no, this one worked through. This one actually was forwarded to the service. So the user ended up getting access that they needed to your application. This is all about logs. Let's talk about Security Center integration. Security Center works on your cloud, cloud hygiene and security posture. I don't know if you guys are using it or not, but you do have a security scoring that lets you know how you're configuring your cloud resources in a way that will make you become more secure. And this is all based on recommendations. We have a DDoS recommendation. Let me open that up. If you have this recommendation as part of your environment and it's compliant, you get some extra points in your security score. As you can see, I don't have any unhealthy resources, but I have one healthy resource, which is my VN Hub, because it is protected with the Azure plan. I need to specify though that the way that this current the way that this recommendation is currently configured, the logic, is not only if your VNet is protected, but if there is an public IP address attached to an application gateway. So it's truly looking on public IPs for application gateways. And if you have any of those that are not protected by a DDoS plan, that's when you would receive this recommendation. And then if you do protect it, that's when you get your points for your security score. And the other integration we have with Security Center is about the security alerts. Let's take a look here. Yeah, this one, as you can see, I have a few that happened previously, and this one is actively happening. So when we have an attack, you can come in here and you can see some of the details of what's happening, which IP is being attacked. You can always, depending on how you're using Security Center, you can have this integrated with your ticketing systems, with your incident response, with your SOC. So there's lots of things you can do here from an alerting and reporting perspective also. It all depends on the level of the adoption that you have. And the last thing I want to show you is our workbook. Let me take a look here. We are using our workbook in the Sentinel tool right now, but this workbook can be deployed in Azure without having to use Sentinel. So if you're not using Sentinel, it's not a problem. You can still deploy workbooks, okay? I am going to look for it right here. Up. And if you are familiar with workbooks, so I'll have to give a another rundown here real quick. Workbooks are simply like it's a highly customizable, and it's also a dynamic visualization of your metrics and of your logs. Okay, so for example, I can select here my workspace, and I want to see only things as they relate to my cybersecurity SOC workspace. All of these details will update. And I don't want to see the last 28 days. Let's say I just want to see my last 24 hours. That's also going to update. So you can see here the details about the attack that we just performed. If you scroll down, the mitigation reports log that I was showing you guys, that had the country of origin, the ASNs, and everything. This is something that will be showing right here as a visual, right, with little diagrams. The flow logs that I was telling you, oh, were the packets forwarded or not, they can be right here. So it's something that allows there's so many ways that teams can work, and I know that this helps a lot of teams to investigate and go deep instead of going into the logging and parsing through that. This just helps them get a good starting point. There are a couple of tabs on the top talking about metrics. Down here, again, this is deriving from the metrics that I showed you guys earlier today, right? Any of these can be created from scratch. They can be customized to meet exactly what you want to meet. And say if there's a type of metric that is important to you, that makes sense in your environment, there you go. Create one right there. And investigation tab, let's see. Yeah, gives you top attacking IPs and some details here of your mitigation activity, right? All of these, they are in fact dynamic. So if I click on something, it's going to load. If I had more IPs here that were attacked, I just have one, but it's going to just adjust and load what other activities you can find for it. This particular, so let's do here. .ms. This is our GitHub page, and we have a lot of different things to offer, but let's focus on the DDoS protection. This workbook is available with a deploy to Azure button for you guys to deploy in your environment. If you, again, like we created this workbook based on the most common things that customers ask, but you can start by deploying this and you can always tweak it. You can always then fix it up to the way that fits you the best. But what we have there truly is a good amount of information that helps most of our customers. And I think, let's see what we covered for. I don't need to go through all over this again. We covered for metrics, we covered for alerts, we covered for the log types, right? We covered for the AS integration, we covered for our workbook, and I promise this is my last question. If you could improve one thing for the DDoS protection, and listen, I know we're talking about Azure here, and I would love to hear, now that you got this, now that you listened to this whole presentation, tell me what it is that our service could improve on. But if you have ideas of other services too that maybe the whole industry is lacking about, just post it out there. This one you guys are gonna have to type, I think. And once you type it out, you can, if you see something that is there that you like, you can do a thumbs up, right, or a thumbs down, and you would be, actually telling, okay, improving on price. Ooh, improving on price. I guess I don't need to do a thumbs up. What else, guys? Let's see. Yep. Yeah, per resource billing. Real time. I feel like I understand that there's a little bit of a lag in the monitoring, but I do feel like ours is pretty close to real time. Okay. Automation. Wonder means thumbs up, thumbs down for. Yeah, per resource billing is a big one. Okay. Interesting. Been the source IP in the whole internet for a while. I don't know if I understand, but this is actually the reason why having a mitigation system is important, because communities like us civilians, we share IPs sometimes, right? And these IPs that we're getting from our public ISPs, they go from one to another. So it might be impacting, while one attacker might be doing something from the same IP, the same IP, it might be other people trying to be legitimate coming from the same IP. So it's not fair to just ban the IP, right? It probably wouldn't be the most effective. Okay. Yeah. Wow. All right. There's a lot here, but I appreciate your participation. Price, per resource billing, and real-time monitoring being like the big ones. Okay. Very cool. Okay. All right. So I think I want to end my piece over here with these two links. We have aka.ms/aznetsec for our GitHub, where you can find lots of contributions, and you guys can chime in for solving for, a bunch of use cases in regards to Azure Network Security. And we have aka.ms/DDoS that gives you lots of tips on architecture and recommendations on how to do the best you can to keep your applications resilient and available at all times, or at least most of the time. And I am going to go. Are we going here, Valen? Are you taking over?
Yes, thank you, Camila. Although the team has answered lots of questions in the background, I still want to give the audience a chance to ask speaker a question, or not just the speaker. We have a whole entire team here helping out with all of your questions, but let me share. I did post the link. It's a different link of poll everywhere than Camila shared earlier. Mm-hmm. So let me also share my screen here so you guys can see the questions coming in.
Are you able to share or do I need to stop sharing? Can you take over?
Yeah, I can take over, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, I believe I'm sharing now. And let's see what we have.
Gonna be. Come on! It's probably you guys be sure you swap your PolEV website. It's a different one.
Yes, at the very top, paulev.com/security webinar, and also for your convenience, you have the link in the IM window. And of course, you can upvote or downvote the questions coming in. In fact, what I'll do, I'll just copy and paste one of the most recent questions that came in, and that way we can kick it off here. Here we go.
No. So when it comes to DDoS, can we block per traffic per source country? No. When it comes to DDoS protection, it is an intelligent engine, right? And it's being blocked based on the type of attack. If it's volumetric attack, it's protocol attack, and it does not matter which country it's coming from, right? I don't know how to explain, like how would you say, hey, block an attack just if it's coming from Canada, but not from the US? I don't know, but you cannot do it this way. The protection will trigger no matter where it's coming from.
Great. Thank you for that. Let's see if we have more coming in.
Questions? Lots of upvotes on that one.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, team, oh, here you go.
Okay, let's see. Can we ID if an IP is legitimate or phishing based on intelligence gathered from external sources like ThreatStream? No, you cannot use an external source like an intelligence feed when it comes to DDoS protection. So threat intel doesn't apply here. It's not actually based on known, bad IPs or non-phishing IPs, etc. It's truly based on the packets. Like, what is that? What are the packets coming through the door? What are their patterns? And this is how it protects. It truly does not matter if the IP is known to be bad or not. Other question? Someone got a thumbs down. Don't do that, guys. I'm kidding. Can we set up alert and automation based on log analytics metrics? And or are there any plans for Azure from Azure to provide built-in mitigation plans? Yes, you can set up alert and automation based on log analytics metrics. Absolutely. Alerts can be set up directly from log analytics. Automation can be set up based on playbooks, right? And so you can actually trigger an action based on that. Now, are there any plans from Azure to provide built-in mitigation plans? I don't know if I understand. Are there any plans from Azure to provide built-in mitigation plans? I don't understand it. You can type out a little explanation if you can there. In what cases DDoS protection standard will protect us, but basic not? The protection is the same, okay? So the protection is the same. Basically the biggest difference is that like the amount of the attack needs to be so big for Azure to actually trigger mitigation, because our infrastructure is huge, but an attack doesn't need to be that big for it to impact your application in a smaller infra, right? So if you want something to be sure, like that is protecting your app at your threshold, that's where the standard comes in. Plus, if there is a mitigation attack at the Azure level, we are not going to share with you the logs. We are not going to share with you timelines and thresholds and what actions we took. So if you need to be able to report on what happened, if you want to be able to get alerts and logs, you need to have standard, because otherwise you're not going to have access to that information. Where are we? Can we protect, or are there plans to protect past services like Azure? Yeah, it's a great question. Like Azure Functions, DDoS against linchpin past resources. So as of right now, we cannot protect public IPs that are from past resources, but it is a top ask. So we are definitely researching and considering prioritization to do something like that. Can stop the attack and find countermeasures. No. We cannot stop the attack for you, right? So the attacker is attacking. We cannot go find them and stop it for you, but we can mitigate it for you. So while the attack is coming through that door, we're gonna be scrubbing and we're gonna be dropping bad packets and passing the good ones forward. Percentage-wise, how much of the legitimate traffic is dropped in extremely intensive DDoS attacks? What packet information are you using to determine the packet is legitimate? I do not know. I don't know if there is a percentage. And what we are using is understanding the packet formation, right? So we can tell based on the pattern, the format of those packets, if they're malformed or not, and also how many are sourcing from the same location, from the same public IP to take an action. Are a new type of attached are included automatically in DDoS engine? Uh-oh, I don't get it. Does anybody get it? Can you retype your question?
I think it means new type of attacks.
Oh, maybe. Okay. Are a new type of attack included automatically in DDoS engine? New type. We do often update with new types of attacks, but normally, even new types of attacks are based on the same attack types. Okay, they follow that same pattern. The biggest one would be for layer 7, right? For application types of attacks that seem to vary and be very sophisticated, but that's the one that we can't cover for right now. Oh, I think I answered the DDoS protection, standard versus basic. Are the standard plan billing per day? So the standard plan billing is, it is not per day, but it kind of could be. It is prorated. So the billing is per month. So there is a particular cost per month, right? If you have a plan, whether you configured it correctly or not, like let's say you have a plan and you forgot to attach VNets, you're still gonna get billed. So it's important to configure it properly. But let's say if you didn't have the plan running for 30 days, but you had the plan running for 15 days, you're going to be charged prorated for those 15 days and not for the whole month. Assume an infrastructure with one public IP, and this IP is being under DDoS with 1 terabyte. Is basic plan going to protect for this? I cannot give you the thresholds for our basic plan. Our basic plan is for our own infra, for Azure, and we cannot share our thresholds. Sorry. Could you please briefly describe difference between DDoS protection and IDS, IPS protection? Oh yeah, so the IDS and IPS protections are based on signatures for intrusion detection or intrusion prevention. And DDoS protection is based on an actual distributed large sums of requests coming to your app, right? Does application gateway with WAF use Azure DDoS, or does it have its own DDoS mechanism? So application gateway with WAF does not use DDoS by default, but if you enable DDoS and you're able to attach your application, your public IP from your application gateway to your DDoS plan, then your application gateway with WAF will be protected. Ooh, lots of questions. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Camila. Yes, yeah, team, and you tackled some great amount of questions here, and thank you for the presentation overall. So just before we end it, would like to remind folks here that to visit us at aka.ms/security webinars for the upcoming webinars. We have, besides network security, we have a bunch more lined up for the end, before the end of the year and the beginning of next month. So looking forward to that. And in case we missed to answer your question, or if you have additional questions, you can visit us on our Azure Network Security forum at aka.ms/Azure Network Security Community. And I would like to close this webinar by thanking Camila for a fantastic presentation, and thank you to the rest of the team who did just an awesome job on answering all the questions that came in. And thank all of you for being part of our community and joining us on these webinars. And we hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.